physical world doesn't just have some mathematical properties, it has only mathematical properties.
So it was quite a shock that there's this digital nature to the universe. And when we do things like build quantum computers, which is what I do, then we're tapping into this digital nature of the universe and effectively programming the universe to do the stuff we ask it to do.
Psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
We have to understand, we are behaving as though we are insane. We're like sheep, wondering why the wolves keep killing us.
But what has changed is that the old world and the new world are not geographic continents anymore. No, they are state of mind.
And it really doesn't matter whether you're a new Earth guy or an old Earth guy.
Some childhood memories are so vivid you remember them perfectly. But what if those memories are wrong? And thousands of others have the exact same false memories.
The internet is buzzing about this new phenomenon that's called the Mandela effect.
All of us fall victim to false memory.
It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages.
We gave you false memories.
According to the Mandela effect, there are several pop culture memories we all seem to get wrong. Take, for example, the iconic Queen song, "We Are the Champions." We've all chimed in at the bar, belting out that famous last line,
"'Cause we are the champions of the world."
But we've been singing it wrong. The lyrics of "the world" aren't even in the last line.
Hey, stop right there, mass media. That's a lie, and you gotta know it. How else do you account for 3 different occasions where Queen is singing in their concerts, "We are the champions of the world"? That's right. The whole mass population knows that song, been programmed to sing that song. You call me a psychopath, right? Well, listen, I'm just going to tell you something right now, okay? Copy this, recopy it, redistribute it, because who knows, they'll probably change the ending on these too. Copyright strikes, whatever. Anyway, y'all, hang in there. It gets better.
It's like a legendary song.
Another memory we can't get right, the Monopoly Man. Maybe you don't know what his name is. It's Rich Uncle Pennybags. But surely you know what he looks like.
Which of these is the correct picture? Which is the Monopoly Man?
Which is the correct Monopoly Man? The one with the eyeglass.
He doesn't have an eyeglass.
Oh, he doesn't? I just gave him one?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I thought I'd make him more sophisticated.
Makes me feel like I was gonna say that Monopoly guy. He's got that monocle, the top hat, the bags with the dollar signs on them. That fictional bastard knows how to live.
I guess business is going well?
I do all right. Thinking about buying a monocle.
Is it as complex as they say?
You just have to hold it in your eye.
Yeah, so that's how I look. My monocle, my eye like this. That's how they did. Like the Monopoly guy. That's how I look. Yeah. Tall top hat on like this. Well, okay, so you're dressed like that. Did Larry know?
Are you seeing how it works? They tell you this is what you're remembering, not this. They're telling you what to think and what to remember. And then they have proof because, well, history says one thing, but you remember another. Even with all your residuals and all your memories and all of those who remember the same as you. but they're telling you you're wrong. You're wrong.
And finally, how about this Jedi mind trick? In Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, what does Darth Vader say to reveal his relationship to Luke?
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father.
What if I told you that's wrong?
I'll say, no, you're wrong.
What Darth Vader really said was,
I am your father. When I first saw the dialogue that said, Luke, I am your father, I said to myself, he's lying. I wonder how they're going to play that lie out.
how is it that we all misremember the exact same things?
As you're trying to remember what the Monopoly Man may have looked like, you may inadvertently remember some bits and pieces or details about the Planner's Peanut Man.
Yep, it's the Planner's Peanut Man who has the monocle, not the Monopoly Man. According to Dr. Brewer, our brain remembers the top hat on both mascots, subconsciously placing Mr. Peanut's eyeglass on the Monopoly Man's face.
Oh, yes, huh?
And you must be the Monopoly guy. Hey, thanks for the free parking.
So, I have found 3 newspaper articles that, for all those people that said maybe I'm remembering this little peanut character with a monocle, which I don't even know who that is. This one is dedicated for you guys. So, first newspaper here, we've got Sun Journal, October 24th, 2000. So this is an article about a tournament. I mean, pause the video and read the article if you want. It's about a tournament of Monopoly. So I'll read a bit of the text here. So players wore the tuxedo tails of Mr. Monopoly, the game's trademark figure, and an actual Mr. Monopoly with the bushy white moustache and monocle looked on. Okay, let me just repeat that. Mr. Monopoly with the bushy white moustache and monocle looked on. Okay, next newspaper article. Where was it on here? Okay, so here we go. Mr. Monopoly, the game's monocled mascot, survives his top hat once, one of the few items that remain after Hasbro's extensive makeover. Mr. Monopoly, the game's monocled mascot. And this is from the Allegheny Times, September 17th, 2006. We've now got the Herald Journal, November 8th, 2007. Monopoly, Hasbro. So Hasbro are the people that made the game, to my understanding. 1935. The monocled capitalist who represents this game of real estate mastery has long been a household figure. The monocled capitalist. Monocled. Okay, that's 3 separate newspapers with 3 separate dates, all stating that the mascot of the game has a monocle.
We communicate false memories through the groups that we're associated to, and that leads to a cultural false memory where many people hold the same belief that things happened that didn't really happen.
Do you see how the basic programming works? The media tells you, oh no, you're wrong, even though you have all the residuals of your own memory as well as residuals from newspapers and so on and so on. They are programming you. It's called programs for a reason.
Maybe that's why we've all been singing Queen wrong.
Someone tricked us all, started singing it wrong, and it's got spread around.
people most obsessed with the Mandela effect don't buy these cognitive theories. They're convinced that this phenomenon is proof of a parallel universe. The ASU Psych Department is considering doing research on the Mandela effect, specifically why people have the same types of false memories. But until the results are in, consider the alternative. Maybe there is a parallel universe where everything is just a little bit different. I'm Christy Siefkin, Fox 10
Ideological
News.
subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There is no mystery. There is nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through their advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
And yet these people who've been programmed and, as you say, in place and who are favorable to an opening with the Soviet concept, these are the very people who would be marked for extermination in this country?
Most of them, yes. Simply because the psychological shock when they will see in future what the beautiful society of equality and social justice means in practice, obviously they will revolt. They will be very unhappy, frustrated people, and the Marxist-Leninist regime does not tolerate these people. They will join the links of dissenters, dissidents. Unlike in present United States, there will be no place for dissent in future Marxist-Leninist America. Here you can get popular like Daniel Ellsberg and filthy rich like Jane Fonda for being dissident, for criticizing your Pentagon. In future, these people will be simply squashed like cockroaches Nobody is going to pay them nothing for their beautiful, noble ideas of equality. This they don't understand, and it will be a greatest shock for them, of course. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years. Actually, it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom.
Ask yourself another interesting question. Why is it that it seems like only the NATO countries, the Western speaking, Australia, Great Britain, America, even in Africa, they're the only ones that seem to be affected by this quantum effect or Mandela effect? It's interesting, isn't it? Not hearing a lot of Mandela effects out of Russia, are we? Home of the Soviet Union. Got nothing against Russia. Got some YouTubers that I've communicated with out of Russia. But we're not hearing any of this Mandela effect coming out of there. Also, look into the woodpecker signal. That's an old thing, where Moscow, under the KGB, was sending out different kinds of signals, frequencies, supposedly, to all the way across the ocean to pick up on incoming missiles, possibly. So there's a lot that's going on that people aren't aware of, that they really don't care to look into. You can tell people what to look for. I tell you all the time, don't take my word for it. And I try and share with people what to look at. I get excited. I can't help it. You know, you get information. I've shelved so much stuff. But isn't it interesting that only the NATO-affected countries seem to be the ones, while all of the arms of NATO nations and Russia and China just broadcasting with their new parade of 2 million man army, and North Korea's constantly doing their little bit. And we're in such a time now that the programming, that people don't even believe that Hiroshima or Nagasaki was real. There's no such thing as nuclear weaponry or warfare. It's interesting. Interesting. Just how dumbed down are we as a country? I'll be honest with y'all. Sometimes people get what's coming to them and deserve it in one way or another. I guess we all have been pretty well dumbed down because we don't want to look at the realities of what's going on.
we have the creator of what is the world's first quantum computer in person here from Burnaby, BC. These are really big deals. They come in at about $15 or $20 million a piece.
Something like that.
And have been bought by major American research and corporations.
That's right, correct.
All right.
There are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation, kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of, which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are, in fact, many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. And this analogy with flight, I think, is an interesting one. So a horse can beat, or could beat, the initial flight of the Wright brothers' flight in speed. But a plane is not a faster horse. A plane is a different kind of machine. The plane takes advantage of another resource that nature gives us, this third dimension, in order to do something that matters to people better that you could do with any horse. It doesn't matter how fast you make a horse, it will never fly, at least the kinds of horses that we know about. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. And that's not the only one. In fact, the one I'm going to come back to and talk to in the context of the story that I'm wrapping this in was recently installed at NASA. And Google was the primary interested party that pulled this whole thing together. And this one is really exciting to me, because what they're going to do is apply this machine to an area that I think is fundamentally important. It's the crux of our future as humans, and that's, can we build machines like us? So, building machines like us might be possible. I certainly believe it is. I might be wrong. But what I do know is that the types of approaches that people are taking now to build intelligent machines benefit immensely from what this machine that we've built does best. So what this center is about is applying this beautiful new computational idea in the service of trying to make intelligent machines. Now, I can't think of anything personally any cooler than trying to use quantum computers to build intelligent machines, so this is very exciting to me. Steve Jurvetson has been a longtime friend and investor in the company, and for those of you who don't know him, he's a Silicon Valley investor who's probably the smartest VC that I know of, and certainly the one that's the most attuned to technological trends. He's on the board of SpaceX, Tesla, Synthetic Genomics, which is Craig Venter's company that's trying to build artificial life, and D-Wave, and that's it. And this is his particularly poetic way of framing the difference between the machines we build and conventional computers. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other, and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to. until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which is about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre. So the way I think about it is that the shadows of these parallel worlds overlap with ours. And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours to make an effect in our world. Now, this may sound very odd to you and bizarre, and in fact, I am using language that a normal theoretical physicist probably wouldn't use, but this is, what I'm telling you is absolutely correct and in line with the way that these things actually work. We've been doing this for some time now, and in fact, we have our own version of Moore's Law. The doubling of the number of these qubits on the chip has happened once a year for the past 9 years. So for the last 9 years, every year the number of these qubit devices has doubled, and it will continue to do so. As a point of reference in terms of how fast these things are, in one generation of chip, the one from the system that was installed at USC to the one that Google and NASA have now, the speed of the device went up by almost 500,000. This is the kind of progress that you're going to see with these types of machines going forward. And 500,000 sounds like an abstract number, but I put up a little mental comparison here to see what 5,000 really means. 500,000 is a big number when it comes to speed. All right, so now I'm getting into the last part of my talk where I'm going to make some predictions, some dangerous predictions. So predictions are very dangerous for a variety of reasons. Often they're wrong, which is one. But I think they're important because predictions somehow are our internal desires made manifest. Predictions are about what we want to happen, maybe not what will happen. And I'm going to make 3 predictions, and all of them are dangerous in the sense that they're very unlikely to happen, maybe, but I think that there's a very good chance that they may. As an aside, I just wanted to say that at least in the Valley, Silicon Valley, and maybe in the United States in general, there's a very deep feeling of unease about the way technology has been developing. Because we have all of these vast array of very smart people, and what they're doing is crap. They're building things that cannot last. They're building things that are not important. This is a little bit of a controversial point of view, but I believe it. But I think that the reason for this is it's low-hanging fruit. Computers haven't been around for a long time. And I think that what's going to happen is that as people get more comfortable with computers, the attention will turn from the Twitters and the Facebooks to very important things. So here's my first prediction. I'm going to predict that by 5 years, NASA will have found an Earth-like planet with Earth-like atmosphere and water on it, and serious people will start discussing how we get there. And by the way, they're going to use one of our machines to help do this. So that's my first prediction. My second prediction is that this business of parallel universes is going to turn out to be very important. This picture that I've got under here is what's called a gravitational lens. When Einstein proposed his general theory of relativity, it came with a bunch of experiments that you could use to test it. And one of them was that if there was a point of light very far away and a galaxy in the middle, that galaxy should bend the light and you should see a ring. And this was eventually observed. And I think what's going to happen is somebody is going to come up with an experiment to test this reality of these things. And we're going to be able to do so. My third prediction that I'm going to end on is the most important of all. I believe that humanity is on the cusp of the most important technological, societal revolution that's ever occurred. And that's when we got to the point where the machines that we build outpace us in every respect. I don't mean that they're better calculators. I don't mean that they're better at searching. I mean everything. And I think that we're very close. And my prediction is that within 15 years, we will have machines that outpace humans in everything.
Want to understand what CERN is, if they would just indulge me for a little bit, they'll have a clear understanding of why they're doing it, what they're looking for, and what is the potential and the facts that will come out of these experiments. CERN, basically, is a device that will allow them to examine particles in their initial state, not after everything is bonded together. That's a very simple way to look at what CERN is doing. They're trying to find the glue that holds everything together. Is what they're doing. That's the purpose of CERN. Now, what has come out of CERN is called antimatter, which was first actually produced. It was first produced in 1955, and CERN is a very old organization, but it was produced in 1955, and they found positrons, which are anti-electrons. To understand what antimatter is, I'm going to have to explain the very bare basics of what matter is, and believe me, it's going to get very weird here shortly, because you're going to begin to see exactly what they're doing. But you have to understand what you're looking at now. The matter and antimatter are in fact opposites. Now, the matter that we have in front of us, if you take a piece of wood, nothing happens. It's just a piece of wood. But if you set that wood on fire, you have caused a reaction. And then it's in a dangerous potential state. It's active. If you have a battery outside of your cell phone, it does nothing. You put the battery inside the cell phone, the electrons begin to flow. The electrons will flow from one place to another. Essentially, that's what electronics are, the control of electrons. They control the direction, the speed of electrons, which create tiny pulses. They flow or don't flow, flow or don't flow. Those are called gates. Those gates form computers. And with a computer, we can do fascinating things. This is why they did, in fact, take Nikola Tesla's findings, because he discovered some things with electrons and protons that were very fascinating. Electricity within itself is a visual observation of electrons and protons. non-controlled state. Antimatter is the opposite of the matter that we can control. Antimatter cannot be controlled. In fact, when they first produced antimatter, they had to have a facility to contain it, because unlike the wood, where you have to have a reaction to cause it to burn, antimatter, you have to have a containment to cause it not to burn. That's the only way they can store it, with massive facilities to store it. Let me give you an example. In a nuclear bomb, it takes timing, which takes electronics, and the explosions have to be just right to cause a reaction. That's a nuclear bomb, like the Hiroshima bomb, which takes pounds of nuclear material to cause it to react, and it has to be very precise. Well, let's go the opposite. Let's say we had antimatter, correct? If we had 1 gram of antimatter, that would equal about 42 or 40, let's just say 45 kilotons of TNT, which is about 4 Hiroshima bombs. And it's already inherently unstable. It's unstable. The only way to harness antimatter is to contain it. And it takes very large and expensive facilities to contain just 1 gram of antimatter. Some have failed, some have not. If those containment devices fail, they cause megaquakes. That's what happens when they fail. Now we're talking small, tiny drops of antimatter. I mean, just drops of raw antimatter. It's highly unstable. It has to be isolated from the rest of reality when it's contained in a literal sense. Now, given that this can be weaponized, which is true, there are other implications that the average person has not thought about. Our body is held together by that glue that they're searching for, that bonds matter together. Those who understand what's called the standard model, they have a pretty good idea of what would happen if the force table in the standard model is just an explanation of how all things work. You're dealing with matter and force, and they have categorized the elements of matter, everything we can touch and feel and observe, in what's called quarks, the building blocks, of protons and nuclei, and leptons, which are essentially, well, that would be like an electron. And then we have force. Force are lumps of energy that transmit the forces that bring matter to life. Like a photon, it carries the electromagnetic force. Without a photon, we couldn't produce motors or anything else. Without gluons, which carry a strong force, neutrons and protons would not be held together. In other words, the universe would not exist. And of course, you have your W and Z particles, which are for weak forces that govern radioactivity. So you have this standard model, and they have broken this down, but what they're looking for is a higher explanation of how everything works. This is the particle they're searching for. Now, they found half of it. They already found a component of it. That was the Higgs field. Now, the Higgs field is an explanation of they found the traces of the Higgs field. They can now observe the Higgs field. The Higgs field is what is found wherever matter is not. In your room, the Higgs field is in operation. Listen, with the Higgs field, they can begin to alter reality as we know it. Now, a lot of people they can't capture that right away. But you have to remember, our world is made up of matter. The antimatter is what we can't see, what we can't touch, what we can't feel, though we interact with it every day. A lot of people like to think of antimatter as the other dimension, which is the opposite of this dimension. It's an inconceivable place that is hostile inherently. It's not under control, it's very hostile. This dimension would be the more tamed dimension. Here's what they've done since the 1930s. Well, actually, since the 1800s. There was a group that studied nothing but the phenomena of paranormal activity, not like you've seen on TV, not like you've seen in Hollywood, not like anyone knows about. But they studied the science behind paranormal activity and have then defined that this is called a dimensional slip, where things can obviously interact with this world all the time. And they were wondering the interactions between known matter and that type of matter. But they also found with antimatter, this antimatter can be absorbed by any realm of paranormal activity. It is, in effect, neutralized and absorbed. So there's a physical effect to the spiritual world in antimatter. And often, demonic entities and all these other paranormal things are attracted to antimatter. They're attracted to it. For every gram of antimatter that's produced, and then it's bought into this world, when they produce it, it attracts things from another dimension coming here. What is CERN going to do? Is to allow humanity to produce pounds of antimatter. People have a general understanding of matter, which we can touch and feel and observe, and antimatter, which we cannot touch, feel, or observe. However, it's working in tandem with the matter, because everything is balanced, the subject of Lucifer in the spiritual sense, because God gives everything balance. Everything has balance. There is dark, there's light, there's good, there's bad. Everything has balance. CERN has yielded so many results and gave a true definition of paranormal activity. It's beyond me that a lot of people cannot get this through the truth of the word. They can't. Antimatter is being pulled out of nowhere, out of this other dimension, which is nowhere, but everywhere. In consequence to that, they found out antimatter has a specific type of energy signature that they can, in fact, detect. This is how is part of the process of pulling it out. Well, as it comes to find out, some of the not so good consequences of this process has to do with the human psyche. Stephen Hawking, he understands the implications of what could happen. He understands how it can affect the psyche. For a long time, Stephen Hawking did not believe there was a God. For a long time, he didn't. But you see, something is changing with him. He is beginning to see that everything is so precise, it's impossible for it to be happenstance. I mean, everything down to a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a meter is absolutely precise. And he's beginning to change his mind. It's what's happening to him. He's changing his mind. He is now beginning to entertain the idea that what people call divine is in fact done by some sort of architect they have no concept of. Now, with the general basis of what CERN is doing, that's the basic idea of what they're doing, and that's exactly what they're doing with particles. Here comes the other part that's not so good. This is why they have to do another set of it. Listen, it's not just one experiment they're about to perform. This thing is going to run 6 months continuously, colliding protons near the speed of light to analyze particles, exotic particles that are made at the beginning of the Big Bang. That's why they call it the Big Bang machine. It's the only way to observe these particles, which wink in and out of existence in, a fraction of time. A fraction of time. And the consequence of this search to gather more and more of this matter, by the way, they have a more efficient method of pulling out or gathering antimatter, which is why they need to know the properties of some more properties of this particle they have described. Once they have these properties, they will be able to extract as much antimatter as they desire efficiently. It's right now to obtain antimatter is very inefficient. It's very inefficient. In other words, to get a pound of it would take about 10,000 years at the current rate. It's just not going to work. CERN will allow them to do that probably within a week. But here's the consequence. They've observed the energy of both matter and antimatter. They found out that antimatter is intimately tied to every single life form on this planet. They found out that energy signature is the same energy signature in all life on this planet. All life, none excluded. Found out when any life form is in the presence of antimatter, the energy of the life form changes. The energy changes. I'll put this in basic terms. A person has both dark and light already in them. It's part of their makeup. It's what you can't live in a material world without antimatter. Nothing would exist. And so a person has both good energy, which would be this realm, this realm of matter, but they also have energy of antimatter. So they're connected. A person is connected to both realms at the same time on the energy level, and they don't even know it. They don't know it. And they have found, certainly, with all the experiments they have found out why paranormal activity exists. They know exactly what it is. They don't want to tell anybody. This is why they perpetuate foolishness on television. But every single person, every single life form is connected to that realm, that other realm, into this realm of reality all the time. Now, a person's thoughts, how a person feels, and doctors know about this too, how a person feels will determine which energy they draw from. You can draw from this realm, good realm, and you have positive results. That's called faith. That's why doctors believe in it. That's why they give out placebos. They know that if a person believes something is helping them, they have it within themselves to repair. They can command their bodies to be repaired simply based on belief. And people think they work. And people have recovered from cancer. People have recovered from back injuries. Quadriplegics have been repaired simply by their own faith. This other realm, because that energy is contained in another dimension, so to speak. That's the containment wall. But when a person draws that energy in, it is the opposite of this realm. In this realm, again, we have to light a piece of wood with a flame to catch it on fire. In that realm, it's already on fire. You have to contain it to see the wood because it's engulfed in flames. It's the opposite of this realm. When a person changes their emotional state, their energy changes, and they begin to draw their energy from this other dimension, this chaotic and violent and uncontainable place where they draw dark matter from, intimately linked. And it's in operation all the time. Now, the scientists, they are aware of this. Now, here's the other part that's not so comforting. On the spring equinox, forces change on the Earth, and they know this. They know that forces do change, which will, in fact, allow them to have better results. And believe me, it's timed perfectly. It is timed perfectly. With the basic introduction of what CERN is doing and what it is, and the dark matter and matter itself. Now we get into the heart of the matter, of what's actually, there will be consequences. It's just that there have been consequences before. Nobody took notice, and the energy signature of dark matter, which, by the way, resides everywhere. But once you bring it into this realm, where we can actually see it and observe it, it attracts things from the other realm. Dark matter is tied to dark matter. Everything has a connection. Everything has a connection. That connection can never be broken by anything. If they bring dark matter into this realm, it's still connected to that realm where the dark matter came from. No matter how far away they put it anywhere, it's still connected. Because that realm is everywhere and it's still connected. Because it's connected, it effectively increases paranormal activity around where it's contained. And this is why they shift facilities of where they once kept dark matter in a college. I won't name it for the sake of the college, but the university. They had to move it to a deep underground facility because of what was happening to the people in the college. People began to have vivid dreams, nightmares. The violence began to erupt and vile things began to happen in those places. And it's because it's a chaotic piece of matter. It is just chaotic. And it's very difficult to contain something that is so powerfully chaotic. This is what an explosion is, by the way. When an atom bomb explodes, it releases chaos. Chaos in the form of chemicals, reactions, and everything is out of order. An explosion is the absence of order. That's what an explosion is. When you contain something, you're giving it order. So it's controlled. Here's the worst part. Understanding that dark matter is always connected to its source, which is that realm where the dark matter came from, the realm that's all around us. Just imagine that dark matter being the ocean, right? Imagine this realm being the submarine. We're all in the submarine having fun, and we're doing our thing, and we have disagreements here, disagreements there. And then we find out there's a hole in the sub. But the hole is not, we thought the hole was in the sub, but it wasn't in the submarine itself. It was, in fact, in the people. The people's water inside their bodies began to increase based on their emotions. Let's just say that. And the dark matter can then come into this realm through people. That's, in fact, what they discovered in 1950. That people can also produce dark matter by way of, it's very minute, it's very tiny, but it's measurable, it's quantifiable. In fact, they now know how much energy a person has to have before they go absolutely berserk. They also know how much of that energy signature a person must have before an entity from that realm can possess them, which also allowed them to understand that not everybody can be possessed. Not everybody can be, the person has to be prepared. To be possessed, they have to be, in essence, they have to be a portal themselves to be possessed. Not everybody can be possessed. And so, not to get way off target, but this dark matter is everywhere. That you know what, all these things, here's what, I mean, it really gets to me, is that these scientists, over the course of many years, have quantified, or they have calculated these things. They have extracted the truth, the facts, yet the Christians don't believe it. And these crooked people in certain places have already been harnessing this power for themselves, and it's been effective every single step of the way. In the scientific community, they see the facts. They know they don't understand it fully, and so they have experiments, and they learn along the way. In fact, they're obedient to their own disciplines, and we're not obedient to our own disciplines. So the problems about CERN, I know everybody's waiting on this. What could potentially happen from this? Well, they had another discovery, that dark matter causes other pieces of dark matter that they have contained to react. In other words, if you have a container, say you had a teaspoon of dark matter, and let's just say you had it in Pennsylvania, and somebody else had that same a teaspoon of dark matter in California, then as soon as the teaspoon of dark matter is exposed to the elements in Pennsylvania, it causes the dark matter in California to begin to activate. In other words, you lose containment in one place, containment in another place is going to be lost. It's going to be lost. So they're intimately tied together. Now, we've covered the fact that people have the signatures of the energy of dark matter in them and matter. So they contain both matter and antimatter, in a sense, the signature of energy. They're not put together. It's just that signature. And we draw upon those based upon our thoughts and what's in our minds and what's in our hearts, in a sense. With CERN, as they begin to collide these protons, dark matter is going to be produced in great numbers. I mean, in greater and greater numbers. Not only the matter, but the energy signature is going to also be released into this realm. You know what that's going to cause? It's going to cause the dark energy signature within people to begin to activate more and more. You see, it's going to become difficult for people to stay contained or controlled. In essence, they're going to become violent. They're going to have vivid dreams. The darkness within a person is absolutely going to begin to surface. And this is not theoretical. This is not some theory somebody thought of. This is absolutely 100% quantifiable, and it's happened before. It's going to happen in greater numbers this time. It will take effect. That's also been weaponized. Nobody knows this, and I probably won't be in trouble for this, but they have a weapon concerning dark matter that they can put within a country or a specific place to cause chaos. It's a weapon. They've used it before. They can unleash this, and it can cause chaos anywhere they want chaos to be rampant. Also, there's something very important about that. I know this firsthand. There are oftentimes you have to partake in the weapons development program, and you become a rat, so to speak, in a maze, to see firsthand what the effects are going to be. They found the force that holds the dark energy or the dark matter away from this realm. They call it the wall. There's another name for that. A name of which that those particles they're going to find, they found part of it. They're going to find the other pieces that are in that wall. And when they find the other pieces to this wall, they will then be able to undo that wall. There's another name for that wall. The veil. Call it the veil. It holds back that realm. They found out what's holding back the dark energy from, because it would be absolutely destructive if the two met. But they found out. Now with this as a weapon, there is no counter weapon to this. China is building an LHC facility. They're building a particle accelerator. There are, to present day count, about 14 particle accelerators in existence. 14, not just one. All the countries are vested in the CERN facility. Every single last country. But the United States, we have 3 facilities here. 3. I can't tell you where they are. One they began to build, but they couldn't, but they went ahead and built it anyway. It's in one of the biggest states in the United States, and it's there and it's operational. It's also going to be powered up during this time. I'm saying this because when this thing does power up, the immediate effects are not what I'm worried about. That's not my concern. The psychological effects on people is going to become quite evident. And I know that people will come under some strange attacks, some strange occurrences and incidents. Absolutely going to take effect. collider, think of a collider as hundreds of nuclear explosions taking place within 1 second. They're containing it. It goes beyond fusion. It's in a realm by itself when they collide protons. They are going to find these particles, and within months, they're going to put into motion what we talked about today, and people are going to feel these effects. And then this other realm is going to begin to spill over in multiple places everywhere. Violence will increase. The crucial side of this is that with this show coming up, people are going to realize all too painfully what we've talked about today, but they have to start now. They really have to. They can't make excuses for their flesh anymore.
And if we're smart enough, we can dive into them and grab their resources and pull them back into ours.
It's this kind of crap, you know. And if this guy knew about that, if the people working at CERN knew what they were doing, knew that they would tear apart people's families, knew that they would kill people and raise people from the dead and then just to kill them again, if they knew that they were going to change the land masses of Earth, if they knew that they were going to change books, movies, videos, TV shows, if they knew all that shit in advance and they did it anyway, what does that make them? What does that make them, folks?
I know of no one who has ever made this claim before, but I rather suspect that my experience is not unique. What perhaps is unique is the fact that I am willing to talk about it. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
It's New York City. It's March 7th.
Well, partly it's taken to these very strange images that are behind your head right now. These are pictures of equations. I've been, for the last 15 years, trying to answer the kinds of questions that my colleagues here have been raising. And what I've come to understand is that there are these incredible pictures that contain all the information of a set of equations that are related to string theory. And it's even more bizarre than that, because when you then try to understand these pictures, you find out that buried in them are computer codes just like the type that you find in a browser when you go surf the web.
You're saying your attempt to understand the fundamental operations of nature leads you to a set of equations that are indistinguishable from the equations that drive search engines and browsers on our computers.
That is correct. So
wait, I have to just be silent for a minute here. So you're saying as you dig deeper, you find computer code writ in the fabric of the cosmos.
Into the equations that we want to use to describe the cosmos, yes.
Computer code.
Computer code, strings of bits of ones and zeros.
It's not just sort of resembles computer code, you're saying it is computer code.
It's not even just is computer code, it's a special kind of computer code that was invented by a scientist named Claude Shannon in the 1940s. That's what we find very, very deeply inside the equations that occur in string theory and in general in systems that we can say are supersymmetric.
That I'm willing to talk about. We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed.
Permission to speak freely, sir. I welcome it. Do you? Okay, then. Are you out of your fucking mind? This is
It's the non-physical, is what he was talking about. Now, next came Nick Bostrom, and he had his PhD from this very institution, from London School of Economics. He's now at Oxford. He was at Princeton, I believe, and he's another physicist. He's a physicist and a philosopher, has degrees in both. He wrote a paper, Are You Living in a Computer Simulation? And he just went through it logically, and he found that it was impossible to say that it was impossible. Then he found out that it was unlikely to say that it was unlikely. That left him with the conclusion that certainly almost all of us are living in a simulation. He said it was very likely. I mean, now in his mind, the simulation is done from some other physical thing that's outside of what's physical. So he wouldn't say that it's non-physical, but that's where it lands. It's beyond, it's some other physical place besides ours. That's how physicists say non-physical without using that word. So that was his conclusion. The physical reality is best modeled as a virtual digital reality. That's how it's modeled in My Big Toe. And consciousness is best modeled as a digital information system. Okay. We're going to do physics first, and then we'll do metaphysics. physics. The main piece of physics that is probing at the fundamentals of reality right now is quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics basically sees particles as probability distributions. It sees the fundamentals of our existence as a probability distribution. You've probably heard of the double slit experiment. It's kind of a famous thing in physics, but some of you probably not physicists.
An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through two slits, we should get, like the marbles, two bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So, they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. But physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of two bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched. And it was here that physicists stepped forever into the strange, never world of quantum events. What is matter? Marbles or waves? And waves of what? And what does an observer have to do with any of this? The observer collapsed the wave function simply by observing.
Okay, now there are many interpretations of why it does this and what it means. A lot of physicists have been trying. Now this was started back in the late 20s and the 30s. All of this was a big deal, and physicists were working very hard on this. They're still a big deal and working hard on it. They haven't really made any progress since the 20s and 30s. Made very little real progress, and all of the theories of what does it mean, what is it saying about reality, none of them have made it into the center of physics. They're all on the fringe. I'll just talk about a couple of them. The one that's most common is called the Copenhagen interpretation. Basically what it says is that if you have a probability of being in n states, when you measure it, you just get a random value. One of those states, randomly, you get that, you measure that value. Okay, then there's one that says consciousness causes collapse, and that comes from the idea that you have to be aware, you have to measure it. Some consciousness has to take a measurement, and that causes it to collapse to the measured value. Now when I say collapse, it's a wave function. They talk about wave functions, but it's really probability wave is what we're talking about. Causes it to collapse to a certain value. Another one is called consistent histories. And that says, well, it's not random state that it collapses to. It's a state based on what happened before, what its history was. And then there's one of many worlds. And I have to mention that David Deutsch at Oxford is one of your countrymen. He's one of the foremost researchers in the many worlds area. Actually, he's published some very good work just recently on this, made some progress. The many worlds says that, all right, you have n states that it could be in. That means it's probability function. In quantum mechanics, you don't necessarily have a smeared continuous probability. There's a probability only certain states can exist. So if there's n states, he says all n of them happen. Everything can happen, does happen, except the one that happens in this reality, is where we live. The ones that happen in other parallel realities, we don't know about. But there is a separate physical parallel reality for every state. Well, of course, there's billions of states. Every electron has multiple states. There's a lot of electrons. So, there's a problem. There's a problem here as well. The problem, of course, that they had with the Copenhagen one is that if it's just a random choice, then that creates two problems. One, all of this reality that we see before us is based upon random choices. That does not compute. Also, that means that if you do the same experiment twice, you won't get the same answer. Well, physicists don't like that either. So both of those were problems. That's why I say none of these theories are problem-free. Okay, there was another one called Many Minds. It was sort of a combination of consciousness causes collapse and many worlds. And basically, it said that the many worlds weren't physical, but they were mental. All right, now there's other big pictures besides that one. Edward Fredkin created digital physics in 1992 when he published two papers. The first one was Finite Nature. The second was A New Cosmogony. And Edward Fredkin is really a pretty high-powered physicist. He was a physicist at MIT, then went to Boston University. Now he's in Carnegie Mellon. He's kind of specialized in the digital side of information theory and physics. And his conclusions were that reality is a computed simulation, that we are in a computed simulation. And he presented this paper at a scientific forum and was not received real well. I think probably didn't get a long applause. It kind of startled a lot of people. But he was a very brave man for doing that, but he had solid physics to back it up. That's why he stood up and did it. Essentially, he says our reality is digital. Time's digital. Space is digital. Essentially, it's informational. He says our reality is just information. Okay. He also said that because a system cannot compute itself, it must be computed in, his words, other. It was computed in other. Okay. He didn't want to go there where it was computed. He knew it couldn't be computed in this reality frame. Okay, so he says it came from a reality frame that's outside of our physical reality. Well, now how do we define non-physical reality? Non-physical reality is basically other, is it not? We have a physical matter reality. That's our universe. That's us. There's everything in the universe, and then there's everything else. And that's non-physical reality. So everything is not physical in that concept's non-physical. So if this is in other, then with that definition, he's basically saying that it's computed in a non-physical. Even if you say some other physical reality that isn't physical, that's cheating. It's the non-physical.
Happens for a reason. Remember hearing that? Well, to some extent it's true, but not in the way you think. Coincidence. What is it? It's a mathematical calculation in the digital world. It's always been there, but we were never taught about it. Coincidence are signs, which most of the time we tend to ignore. Coincidence tells us a lot about the world we live in. There are two kinds of coincidence, man-made and universal. Man-made coincidences try to achieve a goal. Universal, like everything else in life, tries to achieve balance. When universal coincidence happens, it's the matrix hologram attempting to sync realities. I guess by now you know where I'm going with this. In this video, I'm going to show you how coincidence can prove we live in a simulated reality. Have you ever seen or had one of those coincidences where you say to yourself, what are the odds? I'm going to share with you two of them that I experienced that really stuck out to me and made me start to think. Many years ago when I was living in California, I heard on the news that there was an accident on one of the major highways involving a plane and a car. Wait, let me tell it to you this way. It's between 2 and 4 in the morning. Man and wife at home. Wife gets really sick, so sick to the point that the husband has to drive to the store to get her some medicine. He's the only one on the highway. Now, at the same time, there's a pilot having engine trouble and had to make an emergency landing. He makes an emergency landing on that same highway and crashes into the only car on the road, killing the driver. The pilot survives. How crazy is that? I hate to say this, but it seemed like it was meant for the husband to die. I think the universe had to alter the wife's reality, and maybe kids if they had any, to sync with future events. And my second one, which I'm sure plenty of you been there, dating the wrong person. Several years ago I met this girl, and as soon as we started dating, right at the jump, these little coincidences started happening, telling me that this is the wrong person. I'm pretty sure she had coincidences of her own about me. I'm not perfect, but this one, the biggest one, I don't even know where to begin. My best friend comes over to the house every now and then. We play video games, hang out, you know, guy stuff. Even sometimes he come over when I'm not home. He had a key. This one day he calls and tells me he's coming over. Cool. I tell him I'll be home shortly. Later the girl I'm dating calls and asks me could she come over. Sure, I'll go pick her up. My friend has no idea she'll be with me. He's playing video games, and while searching for a game, he sees a picture of me and my ex with a group of friends on the floor. He picks it up and puts it on the fireplace mantle. He tells me later that he thought it fell from there. It was actually on the TV stand under a pile of CDs. That picture was turned down after we broke up over 2 years before. I totally forgot about it. My date came in and it was the first thing she saw. She zeroed right in on it. I didn't even see it. We got into a huge argument. Mind you, we was only dating for no more than 2 weeks. I thought that was very odd. My friend didn't know she was going to be with me. That was a sign. A sign I chose to ignore because I was stupid, because I was no quitter and I was going to make it work. Eventually, my health was deteriorating because of stress. I lost my car in an accident because of her. I finally couldn't take it anymore and broke it off. Those coincidences occurred because the universe has someone better for me, and I wind up marrying that someone. Coincidence always uses accurate precision and have predictive outcome. This got me thinking. You know what else uses accurate precision and predictive outcomes? Numbers. Coincidence tells us that everything we experience are in numbers. Everything we see, everything we touch, everything we feel, smell, taste, all has numbers. There's numbers in everything. Distance, height, weight, volume, even the air we breathe has numbers. The number of molecules in everything. Even food. Steak has to have the right amount of numbers of amino acids, fat, salt, protein to taste like steak. This is how industry mimics flavors. What was the first number that caught your attention? Try to remember that number. If you need to, write it down, but turn the paper over after you write it. Numbers have a funny way of showing up after you notice it, even after this video. But how does coincidence knows where and when to happen? It pre-calculates. It always predicts the outcome before all events occurs. It's keeping all realities in sync. It's trying to maintain balance. Imagine you driving somewhere, you decide to take a shortcut and get into an accident. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. Now you're mad at yourself for taking that shortcut. Probably saying to yourself, if I didn't take that shortcut, this wouldn't have happened. Now, what if I told you even if you didn't take that shortcut, that accident was still going to occur? It may not have been with you, but it was scheduled to happen at that specific spot at that specific time to cause a chain of events to sync all realities for predetermined events that's yet to happen. It's a wonder how stray bullets always catch people while they're sleeping no matter what height they're laying at. Why cars seem to break down on railroad tracks. The universe doesn't discriminate. It saves lives and takes lives, all in the name of maintaining balance. This is the game the universe is playing, because it's a machine. We're living in a machine. But now something made this machine a little off, or maybe overlapping with another universe machine, which is why we keep having these synchronicities. Remember, the universe is predictive. Just a thought, it could be syncing the wrong things. Here's more proof that we're living in a simulated reality. Analog signal is a constant changing signal. If we were in an analog world, there would be no coincidence, only chance. But we live in a digital world, a world where there is either 1 or 0, on or off, no in-betweens. A computer world uses patterns, templates, and mathematical calculations. Patterns like snowflakes. All snowflakes either have 6 sides or 6 points, in rare cases 12. templates like sacred geometry. Mathematical calculations like coincidence. Now I'm about to show you a few coincidences. You let me know this doesn't seem calculated. Just a rock missing everyone, right? Let's take a look outside the rock. Now, was this rock pre-calculated to come in this small area to miss this couple's head? But here's the strange part. You see this guy right here? He's oblivious to what happened. His arm is at the exact height for that rock to go under it. I don't know if that rock was predetermined to miss the people, or was the people subconsciously made the decision to stand the exact spot that they are to miss the rock. Here's a good one. Check this out. You know, I really had to resist the urge to add a funny sound effect to that. Okay, you know I like pointing out the weird stuff. This guy just comes out taking his time, and then he checks his shoe. That's important. Alright, I had to freeze frame it right here. You see the edge of the glass? Notice the guy is almost exactly center of the glass, if not in the center. A step extra or a step too short, the edge of that glass would have cut through him like a bologna slicer. Not to mention if he was a couple of inches more to his left, it would have been a done deal. The universe predicted this event. Now my question is, did the universe predict him to check his shoe? Or did he subconsciously make the decision to check his shoe to avoid that disaster? Either way, he just happened to be at that exact location at that specific time. Seems calculated to me. Here's another one. A group of people crossing the street, and an accident avoided them. But what I want to point out is the door on this minivan. I mean, look how the door went around this person like it was on purpose. That's just crazy to me. Oh, I'm not done yet. I have more. Most of you may have seen this one already. That poor child, I'm glad she's alright. She's just all over the place. And at this moment, she just so happened to decide to take a break and decide to pick the middle seat. What's odd about this is that the bullets is at her head level. It's like the people that was shooting at short people, and she picked the right spot to sit in at that time. And my final one, you see this car right here? It's about to have a blowout right here. The blowout caused that car to swerve right in front of the car that's recording this video, which in turn he reacts and swerved to avoid that collision just to collide into the only vehicle that's on the shoulder. Now what are the odds that car just happened to have a blowout right at that time to cause that car to crash into the only car that's on the shoulder?
It is weird that we spend so much time trying to figure out the universe. That's an interesting fact.
Well, we're curious.
And
are we living in a simulation? Tell me right now, please. Tell us on the record.
I hate to break it to you. You want to know?
Well, I mean, what does that mean?
Okay, I'll tell you. All right. You've played video games before.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what it means.
Have you any game come to mind?
Super Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers. Okay. Mario runs around, jumps.
Yeah, because we push buttons.
And he'll jump off a cliff, but then scurry and come back to the. All right. So he doesn't fall.
Yeah.
If you were in that game and you were a scientist, you would start asking yourself, well, what are the laws of physics in my world? And you'd come up with a portfolio of how things move, how things jump, how things fall. And this will be
your canon of concepts that matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a scientist in Super Mario Brothers, and I decode all the laws that are operating there.
You mean you get all the cheat codes?
Okay, that makes you better at it. So there you are.
Yeah, you warp tunnels that way.
There you go. So there you are, and that's your world. Why is that any different from this world, where I'm a scientist trying to figure out how this world works?
Okay, great.
So now watch.
I got your answer.
Wait. So now watch. As our computing power gets more and more, gets stronger and stronger, and storage capacity gets greater and greater, we can, in principle, program much more than Mario. We can program characters that have free will.
Yeah.
Whoa, if you can program characters that have free will and let them go, they'll invent things, they'll discover things, they'll create simulations on their computers that they had just invented, and they'll give them free will. And this can be simulations all the way down.
Right, simulation spirals.
So
I'm going to need a nap after this. I'm just going to let everyone know that's watching. I'm going to need one nap after this because my brain is definitely gone.
So what? So we've got one real universe.
Yeah.
And all the ones buried within it are simulations. So now
like parallel universes?
Now I throw a dart. Which one am I most likely to hit? The one real universe or one of the simulations that are there? It's going to be one of the simulations. So
Why would I don't understand that? Can you help me?
Because it's just how many are just scattered,
oh,
right? This universe makes this one makes that, this makes that, but only one of them started it all. That's the one over here.
Right.
That started it. Scatter them on the floor, land on one just randomly. Chances are it's going to be somebody's simulated universe, programmed by some alien in his parents' basement, okay, who had super computing power and put in free will in the characters that are playing out their lives, and they think they are real. So watch. So it could be that we are just the creation.
But that's just a theory.
Well, it's a hypothesis, and it's hard to shake that hypothesis.
Yeah, because you don't have a photo and you can't post it on Instagram. Right?
But I do know that this world gets weird every now and then, which leaves me wondering whether the programmer got bored, and then
or he didn't do the update. When your phone just stops working, he's like, "Fine, I'll do the update."
And then all of a sudden, everything kind of works again in the world, right?
Yeah, it's a reset.
So so a simulation universe is that, and so I cannot guarantee for you that we are not in a simulated universe.
Now, what if this was true, and the only way to identify simulations is to give it a common number? The universe has a lot of numbers that have meanings. The number 12 seems to be the most common. What if we're the 12th edition simulation? There's 12 inches in a foot. 12 is a dozen. There's 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night. Jesus had 12 disciples, which is actually talking about the sun in the 12 months. The most abundant element is carbon-12 that we're mostly made of, which is 666, by the way. Carbon-12 is 666. The mark of the beast is man. It actually says that in your Bible. The circumference of the earth is 24,901 miles, and we probably have that 1 mile because of the bulge. Take that away and it's divisible evenly by 12. We originally had 12 planets. The Earth's tilt, which is still up to debate as to what it is today, is 23.4 degrees. 432 hertz is the divine harmony, which resonates with and heals the body, till it was changed to 440 hertz, which does harm by causing stress, negative behaviors, and unstable emotions. But that's another topic. 4 times 3 times 2 equals 24, which is evenly divisible by 12. Halley's Comet visits around every 75 years. 7 plus 5 equals 12. The Great Age, which is 25,860 years, which is evenly divisible by 12. What if the completion of the Great Age resets everything, and we do it all again because we keep failing? We keep failing because we hate more than we love. And the predictions of the Bible was inserted into the program to warn us of what is to come if we don't get along, because it all happened before, over and over. In fact, the Bible would make more sense if we were in a simulation. It would explain the Tower of Babel. Have you heard about the Nigerian boy woke up from a coma speaking Spanish? Sounds like a programming glitch. Now I'm starting to think that the rapture is happening now, but instead of God's people vanishing and leaving Earth, it's more like his people is realizing this reality is not what it really is. So in a way, we did leave Earth, the old Earth of what we thought it was. This is what happens when we make decisions. We affect everyone and everyone affects us. We are all part of this huge game. This is not saying that we are all predestined. In fact, if you can recognize the signs, you can manipulate reality by your thoughts and by taking yourself out of your current situation by consciously not making a decision. You do that by meditating. While you're out meditating, this reality is still going on. And when you return, and if you're a positive person, you most likely put yourself in a more positive position. When you make plans, the universe makes plans for you. You plan to go to work, school, or church? The universe pre-calculates all events with you and everyone in it. Have you ever made a last-minute decision and played hooky from school or took off from work? In most cases, it turns out to be a pretty fun day. You haven't made plans, so the universe has to recalculate for every decision you make. Once you make plans, the universe makes plans for you.
Volkswagen logo. I hope you guys are going to be impressed because you're probably going to point out it's a fake. Well, guess what? I have at least 20 more of these images, different ones, not just the Volkswagen ones, but I have 20 more images of old world residue. That's got to be a record, I guess. So in the next one, we can see the Volkswagen logo. Let's zoom in right now. You can see there's no line in between it because it was human expression. The tattoo artist knew what the Volkswagen logo looked like from the old world. So basically, that guy didn't get it in this reality. So now we've got this one right here. You can see, clear as day, no line between the middle. I'm not photoshopping any of these. I don't even have Photoshop installed anymore, only on school computers. You can see this one here with the old man. That right there, you cannot see the line in between it because if you did, the outline of the old man would not work because it would just be a cross and it would look pretty weird having a tattoo with the outline just looks like it's scrubbed out. Yeah, it's a weird one, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not right. Now we have got one of the Coca-Cola images which I have been trying to search for ages. I finally found it, and I found something way more creepier, which is going to really scare the shit out of most people who actually experience the same stuff as me. This right here is the original Coca-Cola image from my reality. You can see the Volkswagen logo on this girl weird thing's head sitting on the flower. No line in between the middle, nothing at all, only a little bit of shade. That's all. Next one we got is this one here. This one here is one of the old ones, the old Volkswagen logos, but you can see, once again, there is no line in between the logo. But if you guys are wondering why I'm just getting Volkswagen logos, it's because those were the main ones I could only really find. But I did find some more, so we'll go check them out. You can see this one right here, the cross and no line in between the Volkswagen logo. There we go. Another one, same as one before. It might be the same person, we check. No, it's a different one. So you can see there's no line. Then obviously this one here is the same. And you can see this one here. This one here is fucking weird, hey. This is really, really weird. Look at this here. You can see on the image on the left, the logo on the actual car. It has a line in between it. Now you can see the logo on his leg. There's no line because you can see. I'm zooming in right now on my photo viewer. You can see the pixels. There is no darkness or shade in between the pixels. It's not black at all, and there's no black at all. So basically, this is like a really, really weird one. I just don't know how this could actually work. It might have been taken within the change, so the change might have happened, and the guy might have had old world residue on his leg, and then he took the photo. But if the change didn't happen and he took it at the same time he got a tattoo, you can see this one here. You can see on this one here, this right in your face. It's big. I cannot Photoshop that at one bit. I don't know how to Photoshop properly. I've only learned a few lessons, but look, you can see the skin and stuff, the light. Now you can take this to an expert. They're gonna say it's real. If you want to get technical from this reality, it's actually not real. It's old world residue. See that this guy dressed up as Mickey Mouse, and he has the overalls on, which I remember the Mickey Mouse having overalls on. Pretty cool one. Now you can see another Volkswagen logo, no line in between the middle. Now you can see this one here, this one right here, seals the deal that I'm not lying about it, because look at this. How would the Volkswagen logo work if it had a line in between the middle right now. It wouldn't work in this picture. Their legs would have to be chopped in the middle. Like, that's the weird thing about the Mandela effect. Like, it doesn't think properly before it changes. But like, it's not changing. I don't know. You see this one here? A double whammy. Both of them do not have the lines in between the middle. Right here, another Volkswagen one. Another Volkswagen one. You can see this one right here. This right here is a Volkswagen old road residue on the actual car on a tattoo. It's crazy because this one right here would not work if it didn't have the thing on it, because it's a line, and it would look so weird because the tattoo artist knew what the Volkswagen logo looked like. On the Volkswagen logo, you can see no line in between the middle. Okay, so you can see on this one right here, this is this one right here is just weird. Honestly, in my opinion, I just realized it just then, even though I've had it for a few weeks now. You can see the line. You can actually see the line, but on this reality, the line is like, it's dark. There's nothing in between. There's nothing in between it. I don't know. It's just a really weird one. We have a Coca-Cola image with flour on it, and I'm pretty sure this one's a hard one because I can kind of see a little dot in it, but I don't know. I might have not seen that one properly, but it kind of is. You guys vote. Here's another one here. This one right here is clearly the Coca-Cola image with no dots. This right here is clear as day, no dot. Another Volkswagen one, you can see if there was a line in between the middle, it just would not work. I found some more Mickey Mouse residue. You can see overalls, clearly Mickey Mouse. I have found some more. I have found this. Me. Credit me if you're going to make a video about this, any of these. I have found the old Ford logo. You can see it's clearly no pig's tail on it, and it's clearly just a straight line. Straight line, that's all. The old world residue is strong right now. This right here is one of the first images which people use in their videos to try and to say that we have found ghost residue, but clearly anyone who's made ghost residue videos, I'm pretty sure I have actually just like destroyed them right now. I've got all the evidence about ghost old world residue. You see this one here? This one's a really weird one because there's no pig's tail, but it's curved, which I don't know where that comes from. It might have been from the old world, but it might have been like an old Ford logo. I don't know. It might be a pig's tail, but it's really weird, this one, because it's not a pig's tail. It's not a pig's tail. It's a curved tail. Okay, so this one right here is the location of Earth back in my reality, because the Earth right now is located in the Milky Way galaxy, somewhere in between the middle of the Milky Way galaxy. In my reality, the Earth was located around the edge of the Milky Way, because it just is. You can see this one right here. This is obviously shot for an ad or something. You can see that the guy right there has got a t-shirt on which clearly says Coca-Cola. There's no dot there. There's no dot to say that it's from this reality. This is ghost residue. But if any of you guys find like a clearer image of this, make sure you send it over to me or investigate it yourself to see what the Coke bottles in the background say. What the Coke bottles in the background have. If they have a dot in the middle, or if they don't, because that will be hell creepy if they do. It's like the Volkswagen one I just found before.